Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently it was a heart attack. He was found at his home in Memphis, not breathing. His road manager tried to revive him.
For decades, Elvis Presley's tomb has been surrounded by mystery. Rumors claimed important items were hidden inside, while others believed his final resting place held secrets never meant to be seen. Then, a shocking discovery reportedly brought those old rumors back. What was found inside? Why had certain details remained hidden for so long? And could this discovery change what people believe about Elvis's final days? The truth may be more surprising than expected. Join us as we reveal what was really discovered. What they found in Elvis Presley's tomb leaves fans speechless. Elvis Presley was more than just a famous singer. He was one of the biggest stars the world had ever seen. Known as the King of Rock and Roll, Elvis changed music, fashion, and popular culture. So when he died on August 16, 1977, the news shocked millions of people. Fans cried, radio stations played his songs, and people gathered outside his home, Graceland, hoping to understand what had happened. Elvis was only 42 years old. 2 days after his death, his body was taken to Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis, Tennessee. His mother, Gladys Presley, was already buried there, so Elvis was placed beside her. For the Presley family, this seemed like the right place. Elvis had always been very close to his mother, and having them together again brought some comfort to the family. The funeral itself was private. Only people who were close to Elvis and his family were allowed inside the Presley home. Many famous people reportedly came to pay their final respects, but they entered quietly. The family did not want the funeral to become a public show. They wanted time to mourn their son, father, and friend. At first, everything appeared peaceful. Elvis had been placed inside a large coffin and buried at Forest Hill. But the peace did not last for long. Something strange and frightening happened just days later. On the night of August 29, 1977, 3 men reportedly tried to steal Elvis's body from his grave. Their plan was not simply to disturb the grave. They wanted to take Elvis's body and use it to demand money from the Presley family. The idea was shocking. Elvis had only been dead for about 2 weeks, and his family was still trying to deal with his sudden death. The men, however, did not get very far. Moving Elvis's coffin was much harder than they had expected. The coffin was heavy, and their plan quickly began to fail. Before they could complete what they had planned, law enforcement became involved and the men were arrested. The attempted theft created a new problem for the Presley family. If someone could try to steal Elvis's body only days after his burial, what would stop another person from trying again? His father, Vernon Presley, was deeply worried. He did not want his son's remains to be attacked, stolen, or used for money. The family now had to think about security in a completely different way. Forest Hill Cemetery was no longer seen as a safe enough place for Elvis. The family and local authorities began looking for another solution. The answer was Graceland, the Memphis home that had been so important to Elvis during his lifetime. Graceland was not simply a house to Elvis. It was where Elvis lived, relaxed, spent time with family, and escaped the pressures of fame. Behind the mansion was the peaceful meditation garden. In October 1977, Elvis and his mother were moved from Forest Hill Cemetery and reburied at Graceland. The family wanted their final resting place protected and closely watched, forever changing the story surrounding his grave. Forest Hill was no longer Elvis's final resting place. Graceland became the place forever connected with his grave. The meditation garden would later become one of the most important parts of Graceland. Elvis was placed there with his mother, Gladys. His father, Vernon, and grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley, would also be buried nearby. Over time, the garden became a place where the Presley family could remember their loved ones. But it also became something much bigger. For Elvis fans, it became a place of pilgrimage. People from different parts of the world began traveling to Memphis simply to stand near the grave of the man whose music had changed their lives. After Elvis was moved to Graceland, what exactly was placed inside his final resting place, and what secrets have remained hidden there for decades? Let's delve deeper. The secrets of Elvis's grave and the legacy that refused to die. After Elvis Presley was moved to Graceland, his final resting place became much more than a grave. It became a place filled with memories, questions, and mystery. Fans wanted to know everything about Elvis, even the smallest details about his final days. One question that attracted attention was what Elvis was wearing when he was buried. Elvis had become famous for his bright stage clothes, especially the white jumpsuits he wore during the later part of his career. According to reports, he was buried in a white jumpsuit, keeping part of the famous image that people had known during his lifetime. He was also reportedly buried with a TCB necklace. The letters TCB stood for taking care of business, a phrase that Elvis used often. It became part of his personal style and was connected to the name of his band. Having the necklace with him was seen as a final reminder of the man he had been. Other personal items were also reportedly placed in the coffin. One of them was a metal bracelet connected to his father, Vernon Presley. His daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, also reportedly gave her father a bracelet as a final gift. These small objects carried deep meaning. They were not valuable simply because they belonged to a famous person. They were important because they came from people who loved Elvis. But there was always a part of the story that remained unknown. No one outside the small group of people involved in the burial could say exactly what was inside Elvis's coffin. That silence created room for rumors. Over the years, people made claims about other objects that may have been buried with him. Some stories suggested that Elvis may have been buried with special personal items, letters, or other things connected to his life. However, many of these stories were never proven. The lack of clear answers only made people more curious. Elvis had always been surrounded by mystery during his life, and that mystery continued after his death. His grave at Graceland soon became a place where fans could feel close to him. Every year, especially during Elvis Week in August, large numbers of people travel to Memphis to remember him. They bring flowers, candles, teddy bears, cards, and personal messages. Some fans have loved Elvis for decades. Others were born many years after his death, but discovered his music later. Yet they still feel connected to him. One of the most emotional events is the candlelight vigil. Fans walk quietly toward Elvis's grave with candles in their hands. The scene shows just how powerful his influence remains. A man who died in 1977 can still bring thousands of people together many years later. Elvis's original grave also became part of his strange and lasting story. In 2012, the crypt at Forest Hill Cemetery, where Elvis had briefly been buried, was put up for auction. This attracted attention because of its connection to the King of Rock and Roll. The starting price was reportedly $100,000. For an ordinary person, an empty burial place might seem like something with little value. But for an Elvis fan, this was completely different. It was a physical piece of history connected to the singer's short time at Forest Hill. The sale showed how far people were willing to go to own something connected to Elvis. His final resting place had become part of his story and part of the market surrounding his fame. Today, Graceland remains closely tied to Elvis Presley's name. His grave, the meditation garden, his home, and the memories left behind all help keep his story alive. Elvis may have died more than 4 decades ago, but his music continues to reach new listeners. His songs are still played, his performances are still watched, and his image is still recognized around the world. The story of his burial also shows how difficult it was for his family to protect his memory after his death. If Elvis's grave was finally secure, why did the rumors about what was inside his casket never disappear? Let's find out. The secrets, rumors, and unanswered questions inside Elvis Presley's tomb. For decades, Elvis Presley's final resting place has been surrounded by rumors that refuse to disappear. Some of the stories are strange, while others are based on questions about his death and the condition of his remains. One of the biggest claims is that Elvis was not really buried in the way the public was told. Some people have claimed that his body was moved, replaced, or even secretly removed. Others went even further, saying that Elvis himself was still alive and had chosen to disappear from public life. There has never been reliable proof that Elvis survived his reported death, but these stories became part of the mystery surrounding him. The more people talked about them, the more attention was placed on his grave. Some believed that the only way to settle the rumors would be to examine the remains directly. That idea created another question. Would anyone ever be allowed to open Elvis Presley's casket? According to the story, the answer eventually became yes. It claims that after decades of silence, a small group of officials and experts secretly opened the casket for examination. The alleged operation reportedly involved lawyers, forensic specialists, a medical examiner, a state official, and security officers. The small group supposedly followed strict confidentiality rules while reviewing Elvis's medical records, burial documents, and other details from his final days. They reportedly wanted to compare those records with what was inside the casket. The experts were supposedly expecting to find the normal signs that would appear after many years. They would also expect certain features to help confirm identity, especially dental evidence and other physical records. Personal belongings listed in earlier burial records were also expected to be present. But according to the claim, the examination did not produce the simple answers everyone expected. Instead, it allegedly raised new questions. Some materials inside the casket were reportedly in better condition than expected, while other things were said to be missing or different from what earlier records described. One of the most serious claims involved the dental evidence. The story suggests that the dental structure appeared to match Elvis only partly when compared with older records. That claim, if true, would naturally raise questions about identity. But a difference in records does not automatically prove that a body was replaced. Old records can contain mistakes, descriptions can be incomplete, and physical remains can change over time. The story also claims that some personal items recorded at the time of burial could not be found. Again, this was presented as something unusual, but it was not enough by itself to prove that someone had secretly entered the grave. Another part of the story concerns the condition of the remains. The alleged examination supposedly showed different levels of preservation in different areas. Some parts were said to have changed more than expected, while others appeared unusually preserved. This reportedly caused the medical examiner to request older medical records and images for comparison. The goal was to see whether the new observations could be explained by information from Elvis's lifetime. This led to renewed questions about his health and his final days. For years, people had discussed Elvis's medical condition, the treatment he received, and what may have happened before his death. The alleged findings gave those old questions new life. Some began wondering whether there were medical details that had never been fully explained to the public. Others questioned whether parts of Elvis's final story had been kept private to protect his image and his family. Still, none of these questions should be confused with proven facts. The claims about the secret opening of the casket, unusual remains, missing items, and differences in dental evidence have not been established by reliable evidence presented here. No confirmed finding shows that Elvis's body was replaced, that his death was secretly staged, or that his official story was false. What remains is a collection of claims and unanswered questions that continue to attract attention because of Elvis's enormous fame. If the rumors about Elvis's tomb were never fully settled, what secrets were people still claiming had been hidden inside? And could they finally explain the mystery? Let's learn more. The secrets, claims, and questions surrounding Elvis's tomb. For many years, Elvis Presley's tomb at Graceland has been surrounded by questions and strange stories. People have wondered what was really placed inside the tomb and whether everything about his burial happened exactly as the public was told. Some people even questioned whether Elvis's body was truly inside the tomb. Others believed that private items may have been buried with him. These questions became part of the mystery around Elvis because he was not an ordinary entertainer. He was one of the biggest stars in the world, and many people found it difficult to accept that his life had ended so suddenly. Over the years, different stories about the tomb continued to spread. Some claimed that personal items were hidden with Elvis and were never meant to be seen by the public. These items were said to include letters, photographs, jewelry, song lyrics, and a small Bible. One alleged letter was said to have been written for Priscilla Presley. The letter was described as very personal and emotional. It reportedly showed Elvis talking about the heavy pressure that came with being famous. He was said to have written about feeling lonely and tired of always being watched. Another alleged item was a Bible that was said to have been kept with him as a sign of his faith. If these items were truly placed with Elvis, they would give people a rare look at the private man behind the famous image. However, such claims need strong proof before they can be accepted as fact. The story also raises questions about how Elvis's family felt about people looking into his final resting place. According to the claims, some family members were uncomfortable with the idea. They believed Elvis deserved privacy, even in death. Others were said to believe that examining the tomb could finally answer questions that had troubled people for many years. This created a difficult situation because Elvis was not only a famous singer, he was also a father, son, and family member. His relatives had their own pain and memories, and reopening the past could bring those feelings back. There were also claims that some family members already knew about certain personal items that had been placed with Elvis. The account claims that the physical and dental evidence matched information known about Elvis. It also claims that DNA tests connected the remains to his family. If these results were properly confirmed, they would provide strong evidence that the remains belonged to Elvis. But without clear and trusted records, such claims should not be treated as proven facts. One of the oldest stories about Elvis is the empty coffin theory. Some people have claimed that his coffin did not contain his real body. Instead, they believed a wax figure or another object was placed inside while Elvis's actual body was moved somewhere else. This idea became popular because some people who saw Elvis at his funeral said he looked different from how they remembered him. Others pointed to claims that the coffin was unusually heavy. These details were used to support the idea that something unusual had happened. The alleged examination was said to have challenged this theory because human remains were reportedly found inside, with no evidence of a wax figure or fake body. Still, such claims need reliable evidence before they can settle the question completely. Another unusual story involves a hidden letter that was allegedly written by Elvis. The letter was said to contain his private thoughts about fame, loneliness, faith, and the pressure of living as Elvis Presley. It reportedly suggested that he sometimes wanted to escape from the public and live a quieter life. Some people connected these words to the old belief that Elvis wanted to disappear. However, wanting privacy is not the same as planning to fake a death. Elvis's huge fame also explains why these stories have survived for so long. He changed music, fashion, and entertainment, and millions of people felt connected to him. His death at only 42 made the loss even harder for fans to accept. For some people, the idea that such a powerful star could simply disappear forever did not feel real. As a result, stories about sightings, hidden plans, and secret actions continued to grow. What remains clear is that Elvis left a huge mark on music and popular culture. What do you think about the mystery surrounding Elvis Presley's tomb? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. If the mystery surrounding Elvis Presley's tomb, the hidden claims, and unanswered questions caught your attention, please like, subscribe, and watch the next video for more stories. See you there.